Guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, and at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured on the next episode. Let's get started. I had a pretty average-sized haul with 11 books, and number 11 for me is Batman and Robin, issue 10. I want to like more because I really love the Robin solo series, but it feels very disjointed from the art style to the writing. You have two different artists that feel very different. There's one that's more stylized and another that's just more like classic 90s art, and it just doesn't really work for me. And then the story, you have this flatline Robin romance going on, all while Man-Bat has this bigger story, which I've never been a Man-Bat fan, so that just doesn't interest me as much, and I just don't feel like Flatline and Robin's dynamic is as strong here as it was in the previous volumes, especially by the end. They're just like, hey, we'll see each other again, but I'm not kind of staying here for long. So overall, I'm gonna give this 2.5 stars. It's not, it's not a bad book. It's just not exactly where I want it to be. So that's number 11 for me. Number 10, another book that I just have higher expectations for, and that's Spider-Man Shadow of the Green Goblin. If you like old school storytelling for Spider-Man, I think you'll at least have a fun time with this one. The dialogue is a bit heavier than you're used to with modern comics, but it definitely feels very familiar to the Gwen Stacy era of comic books in the 70s or 80s. And with this, what I was expecting was more of a deep dive about the Green Goblin and this new Goblin, this first Goblin. And they're always just in the background, with the other drama being stuff we've kind of already seen before. Peter dealing with Uncle Ben's death. You get to see Gwen Stacy again. Things that I've just seen before, even though I like seeing the character work. It's not much of a Spider-Man book. It really is more of a Peter Parker book, which usually I would like, but it just kind of feels like it's treading old water. But the art style also kind of goes back to that old schooly timeliness. So there's elements I like about it. I might want to finish it through, but then there's also things where I'm like, I've kind of seen this before. What's driving me to finish the miniseries? We'll find out next month if I pick up the next issue. That's 2.5 stars, and that's number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is Transformers issue 9. I'm sure bigger Transformers fans will have this a bit higher, but I like the emotional beats of Transformers, and I think that is the highest part of this issue, where Spike has to deal with possibly being paralyzed, and that's about probably 5 pages of the book, and then the rest is the Transformers action, and then in the end you find this new Transformer. I'm like, I don't know who that is, so I don't have that big, like, oh my god, it's him, it's that Transformer. And there's just a lot of Transformers to keep track of, which makes it a bit hard to follow as someone who's not a huge Transformers fan. So overall, I gave it 3 stars. I think there is some emotional beats here, but not as many emotional beats as we've had in previous issues. So giving that one number 9. And moving on to number 8, the topic of the video, X-Men Heir of Apocalypse, which is the first of the new era of X-Men after Krakoa. Krakoa ended last week, now we're already here. And already you do get a little bit of a vibe of where we're gonna go. They're really putting the toys back in the toy box. Look, the X-Men don't have as much power as they used to. Everyone hates them, so we're getting that idea. And what I liked about this issue is the premise. It's the idea of these X-Men from across the land maybe becoming the next Apocalypse and finding out their connection to it. But as an actual issue and the execution of a first issue, the artwork was a bit weak for me, and it mostly is just get these people in one room, now what happens? I think an issue 2 could be a bit stronger for this one. I probably will get an issue 2, and I, again, like getting the flavor of where the X-Men's going, but it also just is kind of by the numbers what we've seen with the X-Men already. So I don't know if in that regard it's really impressing me for the new era. And again, the artwork not being as strong was a bit of a disappointment. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, Ain't No Grave, issue 2. I was on the fence with issue 1, but I love the cliffhanger. I love this idea that this Western woman is going to try to fight death. In this issue, you kind of follow that vibe of let's go with this kind of hightail Western story. There's a lot of great action here, but story-wise, it's her trying to find death. There's not a lot else to it. They try to inject some emotional beats, but there's just a lot of moments where I'm like, I want to love this book, but I just like it. And again, I just like it because I think the visuals and the scripting is really interesting with the visuals, which makes sense because it's Scotty Young, who's a talented writer, but also a very talented artist. So you could tell with how it's written, it's like, okay, visuals are really important for this book. And also visuals tend to be really important for Westerns. So overall, I gave it 3 stars. I still want to try out the next issue, but it's another book I'm kind of on the fence for. Moving on to number 6. And that is The Incredible Hulk, issue 13. I like this one. I feel like the beginning of the issue was a lot stronger than the end, though. The beginning really got me, where it's just Hulk versus Bruce. And you get to see them talk about Charlie as a character, how they feel about her, and how they feel about each other. Which, have we seen it before? Yeah, but I think we get in this modern context of, again, Charlie as a supporting character, which makes it feel a bit different. But then you go into the Dr. Voodoo spell curse stuff, and I just feel like it kind of loses its character work a bit. Until the end where it's like, okay, let's try to figure out how to save Charlie. So again, I think the first half was a bit better than the second half, but I still am enjoying this arc more than the Ghost Rider arc. And I like the art. I think it works really well with the horror vibe it's going for. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, this did go a little higher in my list, and that is Ultimate X-Men issue 4. Gives me another reason to try to stick around with this book. I just feel like the plot was a bit heavier here. I feel like we were moving a bit with this guy who killed himself, learning more about that, but most importantly, we get to see people find out that armor exists, right? That this mutant exists, and our main character goes viral, and we get to see the reactions of our new main characters, the white-haired girl and Nico, and then there's another character that shows up that I'm guessing is Bomb Bomb because of her powers. So I just like that we're embracing the world a little bit more. I still don't know if it's personally my style of book. There's elements that is just more entailed to a manga than it is an American comic, but I still want to stick for the ride and see where it goes. I just genuinely think that this issue gave a bit more. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Crocadile Black, issue 2. This is just a really cool vibe of a book. We get to see it within COVID, during the time of COVID, which not a lot of books tackle, and we get to see our main character slip into the darkness and become this really bad person, and we don't really know exactly why. It just kind of feels instinctive of, okay, I'm not a good person, and I kind of have fun using this gun, and I'm excited to see where this mystery unfolds and hopefully get a little bit deeper into this character, but there's something about the tone that really attracts me to the book. So I'm giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, a book I normally wouldn't pick up, but because it's Greg Pak, I did get, and that's Lawful issue 1. And honestly, not my genre, but I actually thought it was a pretty good issue where we get to see this boy who's just a regular human who, if you do something wrong in this society, you become a monster. So you see all these monsters around. His best friend's a monster because everyone's done something a little wrong. And then he's like, no, I gotta be narrow. I gotta always do the right thing because my mom's sick, and this is how I could get medicine if I stay to be this human. And in the end, when his friend might end up getting in trouble, he might have bend the rules a little bit. So you're like, okay, and he's starting to become that monster again. So what's gonna get him to that moment? And I don't know. It's just a really interesting thematic book about what is wrong and what is right, and in this allegory about monsters. So again, I'm not a huge fantasy fan, but I did like the groundedness of it. I like the art for it. I think works well because there's this mundane feeling to it, all while you have these monster-like creatures. So overall, gonna give this 3.5 stars, and definitely gonna try out the next issue for this as well. Moving on to number 2, which is Ghostlore, issue 11. We're just getting deeper and deeper into this mythology as we find out the bad guy, who we thought was human, is actually a ghost. And we just get to see our main characters react to that. There's some really, really good art here. Just good horror moments. If you're looking for a fun book that's always reliable, I always say go check out Ghostlore. I think there's only one more issue left of it, but I just like this creative team a lot. I just think that they work really well together, and I enjoy the 2 main characters, and I always wanted to see where they're going. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number one, this is my obvious number one for the week, and that is Green Lantern issue 12. Oh my god, I love this issue. It's just the perfect superhero book in my mind. Jeremy Adams can do no wrong. They're just a great creative team that reminds me a lot of the Jeff Johns era of Green Lantern. It just feels like they're continuing to do new things, but also relying on the things we love about Green Lantern. And here we get to see Hal, with all his might, try to save his team against these very powerful people that even Amanda Waller are a bit scared to combat, as we tie into absolute power, and then Carol comes to save the day. I want to see where Carol goes as a character. I think it really is evident that they're going to get together by the end here, but also what she's going to do as a Star Sapphire, because she kind of even admits, she's like, I'm not a superhero, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I love Hal, and I want to see her find her voice, because she is the last Star Sapphire, and there's just a lot of interesting things tied to her. But really, really wonderful issue. If you're a fan of Carol and Hal, but also just a fan of the Green Lantern mythos, I just think it's a really well-balanced book that I get very excited to read every month. So I'm giving that 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was, and last week's viewer pick of the week was Boy Wonder, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.